Hi everybody, I am here with Scott from the Surrey Hills Adventure Company,
Did you
otherwise
just call
known
me
as...
Scott?
Hang on,
Sorry.
I haven't finished. Otherwise known as Skip from the Shack. Is that better?
Yeah. Well, no, Scott's good to my friends.
Yeah.
Which you definitely are.
Okay. So I'm here with Skip, and I'm here just very impromptually, aren't I? Came here for the big swim last night, here at Buckland Park Lake, which is absolutely stunning. Do look it up. It's beautiful here, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's an amazing place to have the shack.
Yeah.
And I just thought, as I'm here, I might as well just grab a little scoop with Skip. And Craig, we are really sorry that you're not here because you're so much a big part of this story, but we'll try and do something a little bit later with you both. But I'm here, Skip, to talk to you about your... words cannot define this incredible adventure that you've had, which is the Yukon 1000. And if you haven't heard of it, look it up. There's the Yukon River Quest, which is 750-kilometre race.
Yep.
And these are both races, they're not challenges. And then there is the Yukon 1000, which is 1,000 miles. Now just take that on board, 1,000 miles. And it must have been over 4 years ago that you decided to do this race.
We applied over 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so no decision was made because obviously you have to be put through a little process and selected by the race director before you can even go any further. So yeah, we applied back in summer 2019.
Okay. And when you say, a small process, it's actually quite well, it might be a small process, but it's very thorough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is thorough.
Not everybody can do this.
No, they can't. And the man that decides who can and can't, and I don't know why he decided that Craig and I could, but we have, is incredibly good at identifying the necessary, I guess, mindsets and skills that he feels are necessary for it, because he's responsible for everybody's lives at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's what he's done all his life from a professional standpoint before he started managing this race. And it's now clear to us now that he knows what he's doing.
He absolutely does know what he's doing. Yeah. And he's British as well, which is incredible. Let's give him a name. John Frith.
John Frith, yeah.
John Frith.
Yeah.
So John looks at you as it does matter about your paddling ability, of course it does, but it matters about your ability to survive in the wild, because that's where you're going. You're going to one of the most remote places on this planet, and it's very difficult to just drag you out if you have an emergency. They can't just drag you out, can they?
No.
So he's also looking at your mindset, is he, do you think?
I think more so than anything else, actually. Yeah, I think he looks at all of those things, like the things that you might have experience in, but I think he looks closest at the team and the mindset between the team.
Yep.
I think that's probably his most important thing. I mean, you touched on pulling people out of wild places. That's what he's good at. That's what he's good at.
Thank God.
Yeah. Well, we didn't need it, so that's even better.
No.
But
hey, don't give it away.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's where his skills lie, and he's a man that he doesn't pull any punches. He says what he thinks, and if you don't like what he thinks, then
you're out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Or you just don't tell him that.
So let's not bore people with the details, but couple of years of COVID. I mean, the most not exciting but mind-bending one was you actually got there last year.
We did.
You got there, you were back on board, to plan for this race and get fit, and then had to drop that off and because of COVID. And then last year you got there. Tell us what happened.
Well, in a nutshell, poor old Craig caught COVID.
A couple of days before.
Well, he was feeling rough in the run-up when we got to Whitehorse, and we got to Whitehorse probably 3 or 4 days before the race was due to begin, and it was a couple of days before he actually tested positive, and he was not in a good state. He was really quite unwell.
Had it bad.
He did have it pretty bad, yeah. So it was quite an easy decision once we realised what it was and how he was feeling, that the only safe decision in that situation was for us to pull out.
Yeah.
And it was very much a joint decision, and one that we now look back at with the sense that it was absolutely the right thing to do.
And it's a it's a part of your story,
Massive
isn't it,
part of the
as well?
story.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
but you learnt from that, didn't you? You didn't just fly home with your tails between your legs.
Nope.
You went on a little road trip. You met some incredible people. Let's just talk about those people because they've really helped you through this whole process, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
Who
So
are
I'm
they?
guessing you're referring to Glenn and Maury,
Yeah.
our great friends and our very inspirational couple that did the race in a canoe last year as a pair. They are both from Canada, Ontario. Glenn is a First Nation guy that grew up in the wilderness and remains doing, from a professional point of view, a lot of stuff in the wilderness. And then from a lifestyle point of view, he's always in a canoe or always in the woods doing something. As is Maureen, she's slipped into his world alongside him and is alongside him in everything he does. And
Wow.
they're wonderfully knowledgeable and just beautiful people, inside and out.
How lovely to make, lifelong friends from actually not doing the race.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we drove their truck for them last year in the end.
Yeah.
So that's how we got to know them, and we've spent some time with them since, both there and here. And then they were there alongside us again, as much as they could be this
Wonderful.
year. So we were
Wonderful.
very lucky.
So fast forward.
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah.
Back on it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel better prepared this year than you did last year?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Short answer. Love it. I thought you did.
Yeah.
So silver lining.
Absolutely.
2023.
Yeah.
You've got all your stuff. So many people to thank for all your kit. I know you will do this. This is the first of many posts that you will be drip feeding us. Great stuff, won't you, from the race? And
we'll see.
All the
Craig's department,
and all the thanks to people, because there's some amazing people who've made this trip really, really possible.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward. Let's get you there a couple of days out. How many teams entered?
I think there were 27 this year that entered, that were meant to be on the start line,
Okay.
across all the disciplines.
Yeah. So it's a multidiscipline. It's canoe, kayak, and sup.
That's right. Yeah. SUP being the newest element to the race. Yeah.
Yeah. And you are a couple of days out, and 27 teams didn't start the race, did they?
No, 17 started in the end.
So we're whittling it down all the time, which makes it even more incredible. Talk us through those first couple of days briefly about how it felt to be sort of in camp, and did you go and get yourselves extra little bits and pieces you need, or were you absolutely covered?
We felt like we were absolutely covered, and then you get there and we did a bit of panic buying. A few little bits and pieces that we actually added to our kit just to improve it a little bit, but they were minor tweaks, really minor. But then we ended up I bought about £5 worth of, pounds in weight, of nuts, mixed nuts, which I didn't use, just carried them 1,000 miles down the Yukon with me, and loads of beef jerky. And it turns out once we started eating the beef jerky that neither me or Craig liked beef jerky. So yeah, we panic bought, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
But that was about the only things we really added to what we took with us, was food, with the fear that we were just going to get hungry, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And okay, let's another fast forward to the start line.
Yeah.
How did you feel on that morning of the race? How did you feel? Were you sort of relieved that you were actually going to get on the water, or just excited, nervous, or all of those things?
None of them. I was in a weird place. I was in an incredibly calm, and I didn't have really anything going through my head.
Standard, isn't that, Skip?
Possibly.
Sorry.
It was strange because Glenn, who I mentioned earlier, did a blessing and for the river and the journey, and in a very First Nation kind of traditional way, using tobacco. And I listened to that intently. I was very focused on his words, but beyond that, there was very little noise in my head. It was a bit of a strange moment, actually, beautifully strange.
Yeah.
But I wasn't excited. I wasn't nervous. I was just kind of there.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really felt that very often before. That kind of just real peace. There was no noise at all.
No noise in your head.
It was bizarre. Yeah.
And then that noise almost carried on for the whole trip.
Well,
a little bit.
There was bits of noise, but there was a lot less noise than normal.
Than is in our normal lives.
Yeah, exactly.
So off you go.
Yep.
And I think as soon as you hit the water, you were off.
Yeah.
That's it.
Didn't look back.
No plan.
Well, we had
Sorry,
plans.
many. No, I mean that.
Yeah.
Many plans.
Yeah.
But just paddle.
Just in that moment, we had discussed that we were going to race our own race from the outset, from a long way back. So we had no expectations on us whatsoever. Just wanted to get on that river and finish it. Really. At the start there, I kind of went off sort of first from the beach out of the 4 people that got on the water, and just paddled, and Craig followed, and we just paddled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so the first obstacle is the lake, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is a massive lake.
It's pretty big, yeah.
It's about, what, 60 miles, you
About
said?
60 miles from end to end, yeah.
And it can be proper gnarly, can't
it can be brutal.
So wind, no flow,
waves, 4-foot waves, all sorts of things, yeah.
How was it for you this time?
How
was the lake?
It was really kind to us in terms of the weather. It was really kind to us. There was a little bit of chop when we first got onto the lake for probably about the first half of it, but it was only minor, really minor, slight tailwind, so we probably got the best conditions we could have hoped for.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the conditions that I like to just lose myself in.
Yeah.
So I was able just to get into a rhythm and make my way across that lake.
Perfect. And you paddled for how many days before you saw any other paddler?
Any other paddler, we were day 4 or 5, I can't remember which.
Okay. So the SUP
4,
start first because you are slower. I mean, you guys won't, but you are slower, so they set you off first.
There's 2 of them in their vessels. They've got 2 engines.
One on yours.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
let's get that in there.
It was a little while before anybody caught you up.
Yep.
And the first girls who were insane because they broke the record, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. And it wasn't a super fast flow year, was
no,
it,
not
this
at all.
year? I mean,
no,
last year
it was a very regular year. Yeah.
So, well,
the Estonian girls smashed the ladies' kayak record.
Yeah.
And
did they stop to talk to you when they passed by?
Not really, no. They were definitely intent on kind of finishing that race first.
Going for that record.
The only thing they said to us was, "You guys are fast!" And me and Craig were like, "What?
Are we?
Okay, you're fast!" And then they'd gone.
But they knew what was happening.
They knew what was happening. We didn't. Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah.
So what's the first? I mean, obviously you have to do mandatory stops between. Is it you have to stop between 10 p.m. and 12 p.m.?
10 and midnight, exactly. Yeah, for 6 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to stop for that.
You have to. If you don't, if you go over the time of when you're meant to stop, or you can stay in camp longer than that. There's no penalisation for that. But if you go outside the hours, then you get a penalty. But obviously, if you stay in camp, you're losing time on the water.
Of course, yeah. And they know that by your tracker, don't they?
They do, yeah. Yeah, it sends a little bleep every 10 minutes.
Okay. And you're not allowed to take any. I mean, you do have your phones and things on. They're in a sealed bag, aren't they?
Well,
or
this year John allowed people right at the last minute to take some phones with them, but you weren't allowed a SIM card in it. I actually took the decision to leave my phone behind completely, because I wanted that complete disconnection. Even the process of pulling it out and swiping the screen, I just didn't want it, so I just left mine completely.
Brilliant! How lovely to be able to do that for 10 days or so.
It was incredible.
So first stop, major stop, is it Dawson?
Probably. I mean, that's kind of the cut-off. Dawson, you've got to hit Dawson within a certain time frame, otherwise you're pulled out the race.
Okay.
So that's the first major one.
And there were a few people who pulled out there, weren't there? Or a few people who pulled out before there, and not many. I don't think.
I think it was
maybe
1 or 2 teams, maybe.
Yeah, and they obviously made that decision because that's about 500 miles, isn't it?
Just under. So it's just under halfway.
Okay. So from there on in, you are going into a completely different world, aren't you?
Not that we knew it, but yes.
Remote.
Yeah. Unbelievable. I don't think I'll ever be able to explain to anyone except Craig and other people that have done it how remote it is. It's just insane, and how vast it is. And we could put a number of words and explanations around it, but I don't think we'd ever get to the reality of where you are. I nearly swore there. Sorry. It's insane.
You can swear on Supjunkie.
It's fucking nuts.
Oh, maybe not that word. Yeah. Well, there you go. Just you saying those words.
Yeah.
shows how, and to not be able to explain it to someone.
You can't prepare for
No,
it. All the thought process. And we've had 4 years of it. You'd think you'd have some idea of what you're throwing yourself into, but
yeah.
no.
So you both. I mean, you have to do it as a team. A pair. And on Sups, you have to go two together. Craig and you work. You're great friends. You know each other's strengths, weaknesses. You both have your real good skill sets, don't you? Both very different.
Very different.
But join you two together, force to be reckoned with.
Seems so. I mean, we didn't know it.
So let's talk about Craig.
Okay.
We love Craig. What are his strengths? What were his strengths for this trip?
His endless energy.
Okay, Duracell Bunny.
Duracell Bunny. The man has an engine on him like I've never seen anyone have. He doesn't need to stop. Even when we were supposed to be sleeping, Craig had stuff that he needed to do before he could sleep, so it reduced his sleep hours, not only slightly, but then when we were on the water, I struggled with fatigue. I learned to deal with it in a particular way very, very quickly, but Craig didn't need to stop. He was just go, go, go. Don't get me wrong, we both had our ups and downs, both mentally and physically, but actually having to sleep, I don't know whether he did.
No.
I really don't.
I think he's done a social media post where he suggested he might have slept 3 hours a night.
Yeah, I think that was probably insane, lucky if he got 3. Yeah.
Crazy. And other skill sets for him, all the
incredibly organised and man. Planned man. Yeah, everything for him to feel okay in himself. He has to be, on point and feel that he's done everything he can to make things as best as they possibly can be.
Yeah.
And he's really good at it. Really good at it, and I don't think I've been able to have done it without him on my team. I don't think anyone else would have stepped into that breach the same way that he did.
Yeah. And don't joke with me. Your skill set, please, Skip.
I'm a good paddler.
Damn good paddler.
So it seems now.
But you're a proper outdoor. You know the outdoors, don't you?
I guess if I'm honest about it, I'm fairly comfortable in extreme situations. I tend to be able to keep a pretty level head in most circumstances, and I'm not saying I did that the whole time, because I didn't. No. But I think that's probably the one thing I could say about my strengths now, and I've never been good at talking about me and what I'm capable of. But having done something like this, it does allow you to have a slightly more sense of what you're capable of and being able to describe it a bit better.
Yeah,
and be, I guess, proud of it. Yeah, acknowledge
absolutely,
it.
and acknowledge how good you are at that certain skill set.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't have been able to do it without you.
No.
I'm guessing. We'll ask him.
We'll ask him, yeah.
Okay, so let's move forward. And did you have any idea where the other paddlers were behind you? Because there was another team from Great Britain, great friends Martin and Kim. Did you have any idea?
We had so day one, we knew we'd got quite a lead on them because we were looking back across the lake. We got to the lake and we were on the lake, and I hadn't really looked back until that point. And we were just kind of curious by that point. And we thought we could make them out, and these two little dots on the horizon, which seems nuts to us, but there was nothing else there, so we kind of determined or thought that must be it must have been them. And then beyond that, we had no idea whatsoever. So that was day one. Within 8 hours, 10 hours of paddling, we had no idea where anyone was until the first races started coming past us, and then you get a little bit of information coming through that give you a sense of where you are in the race and how you're doing.
Okay, talk to me about the rapids. Because we all, that's again, it's a bit like the bears. Everybody focuses on the bears and the rapids.
Yeah.
5 Finger Rapids, which I think is now 4 Finger Rapids, isn't it? Haven't we?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know about that.
One of the little islands.
I don't know. I think it's still known as 5 Fingers, whatever. But I don't know.
Of course, it will be historic. Name. So, talk to us about that.
We had an interesting run into 5 Fingers because Craig.
Got to go right.
You've got to stay right. Everything's right on that river. Just stay right. River right. It's simple rules. Had a bit of an off about an hour or two out from getting to 5 Fingers, and we managed, quite incredibly as far as we're concerned, to get to 5 Fingers the second night. I think it was the second night. Am I right in thinking that? Yeah, the second night, which is quite an achievement. We didn't expect that. we've seen other teams do it, and Craig's incredibly knowledgeable around the race, so he had certain things that he would like to have achieved. They weren't necessarily goals, but they were milestones that we felt that if we got them, we knew we were doing all right. Yeah. And so we had this slight off, and after that we kind of regrouped a little bit, and we discussed at length whether it was wise to go through Five Fingers that night or to wait until the following morning.
Now, when you say night,
Yeah.
is it dark?
No. I mean, it gets dusky.
Yep.
But it doesn't get dark.
It's just setting the scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because people go, why would you want to go through that at night?
Well, that was
Because
one of the deciding factors, actually. That it's funny because at midnight it's actually a lot lighter than it is at, say, 6 in the morning. Whereas, so if we'd stopped a little bit earlier to go through the following morning, we would have stopped around 10, and therefore would have been out of camp at about 4, and that probably is about as dark as it gets. So part of the decision-making process that we had was to say, well, look, it's going to be near to about 11 we would have gone through, and we thought, well, the light is actually better than early in the morning, so that was one of the safety considerations that we made, and swayed us to go through that night. It wasn't all bravado and we want to be heroes. There was a lot of debate about it, because, as I say, Craig had an off, so we had to consider that as well, but we also considered things like the fact that if we did come off in the rapids, we'd effectively be going into camp, so we'd be warming up rather than having another day's paddling ahead of us and having to re-warm and then carrying on and so on and so forth. Yeah, so there was lots of factors that we really discussed well, and that was the decision we came to.
And how was it?
Oh, really good fun.
Yeah.
Really good fun. We decided to go through on our knees, and that was really another safety thing. It's like, you don't want to mess the whole thing up by one stupid decision, so we just took the safe option every time, and it actually, for me, it probably was the right option, because I went in first, and we discussed that as well, and as I exited it, actually I got a side wave that clipped me and nearly took me off on my knees, so I'm glad I wasn't on my feet, because I would have definitely gone in. Yeah.
Good decision. And then amazing
Can I have
things.
my coffee?
Yeah. Is it this one?
Yeah, just don't want it to be cold.
No, of course not.
Thank you.
And that's why, thank you. Amazing sights along the way, maybe wildlife,
Yes.
or let's just talk about that briefly. What did you see?
All right, let's go through it quickly. So quickly, the first thing we saw, and we weren't far out of Whitehorse when we saw it either, was a moose on the side of the river. So that was the first thing we saw, and then there was beavers, and we saw some bears. We saw a lynx, which was mind-blowing, because you don't often see lynx. And then we saw osprey and eagles, all sorts. Not abundance of, but we were very lucky to encounter them in close quarters. Yeah. So that was the amazing thing, I think.
Lovely.
Yeah.
How amazing. That might draw Sarah Perkins to do it.
Yeah.
Nothing else would, but that might.
She did suggest that she wanted to do it with me. It's not happening. It's not happening.
So let's go on to the last part of the journey. And talk to me about the flats. Everybody, when they say the flats, it's almost like the word. It's awful.
I mean,
your face. The flats. What is the flats?
Well, it's all in the name, really. It's the flats for a reason, because it's flat. There is nothing, for as far as you can see for 2 days. You cannot make a reference to a hill or a mountain or anything, because it's completely flat. There's a lot of waterways, and it's like a massive network of interconnecting waterways that run round sandbars and islands off the main flow. So it's incredibly complicated.
You have to take the right. You really have to take the right.
Oh, you can get it really wrong in there. Really wrong. You can
Yeah.
lose a lot of time in the flats if you get it wrong, and we did lose a bit of time, actually. We did make a slight mistake right at the beginning, but it wasn't massive, and we didn't end up having to portage or drag the boards. So we managed to right it, but we did lose a little bit of time. But that's part and parcel of the experience. It's a crazy place. It's scary. There's nothing there. It's difficult to keep your mind focused on anything. It's
probably the mind that is going by there, isn't it? Because you're up towards the end of the race here, aren't you, on the flats?
Yeah, you're probably when you enter the flats, you're 3.5 days out, possibly 3.5 days out from the finish, something like that.
Yeah.
So you're into the Arctic Circle there as well. So you nip up into the Arctic Circle when you're heading north, and then during your time in the flats, you end up going south again and coming back out the Arctic Circle into Alaska. back into Alaska. Oh, mind you, the Arctic Circle is in Alaska. I'm talking nonsense. It's all in Alaska, but
You're still tired, darling.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, it's like I say, it's not a place that I think, unless you've been there, you can really explain with words or pictures or any of that. I know that some of the other races will be exactly all of them. It's nuts.
And then the next bit is seeing the bridge, isn't it?
Not quite.
Or not quite.
Sadly not. No, there's
okay.
there's a bit between that. As you're kind of coming out of the flats, you see this mountain range in the distance, and we know that the race finishes in the mountains. And you see them, and you think, that can't be the mountains we're going to, because they're so far away, so small. But they are.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like you get to a place called Stevens Village, which is sort of the official end of the flats. But the river is huge at this point. It's monstrous. To give you some sort of scale, I did a calculation on one bend that we were paddling around because it was taking a long time. I thought I'd try and fill some time up. And the rough calculation that I did was on this one bend, and there was many of them, the inside of the bend was about 10 miles long. The outside of the bend, therefore, would have been 17, 18 miles long for one bend. And it's about 5 kilometres across. So that's a bit of the scale of what's going on there. I mean, it's yeah. And at times the river looks like it's going downhill. Sometimes it looks like it's going uphill. And sometimes you look like you're paddling off the edge of the planet. I mean, I definitely became a flat earther out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The planet is not round.
Not there.
Not there. It's not.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay, so you're paddling towards the mountains. They're taking a very, very long time. And then, who spotted the bridge first?
We both did. No, we both did, because we knew, because we were mapping it. We knew when it was coming. We knew
this is the end point.
Towards the end point, you think it is, yeah. But because you hit the kind of the mountains again, that's where all the weather really happens, is in the mountains, like anywhere.
Yeah.
Storms and weather cycles are generated by mountains, blah blah blah. So it's like it wants to throw one final test at you before you actually get to the end. So you kind of get to this point where the hills come down and meet the river after hours and hours of paddling, and you're like, yeah, we're back into the river, so the flow's going to pick up, and we're in the final stretch now. And then the wind picks up or the rain comes in, and you've still got a long way to go. There's still a good nearly a day's paddling on that final stretch. I suppose maybe half a day, but it felt like forever, and there was things thrown at you that you weren't expecting. You kind of think it's an easy row in now, an easy paddle in. It's not.
And I don't know if we've actually mentioned, you have to do this in 10 days. So we are talking 100 miles a day, aren't we?
Yes, you have to. Otherwise, you're not registered as taking part in the race, and there's no one there to get you out of nowhere. At the end, you're left to sort yourself out, and it's a lift home with a trucker if you're lucky.
Yeah.
You wonder what might happen there.
Okay, so we've seen the bridge.
Yep.
How did you feel knowing that you were at the end? Did you have any emotions about that?
We had loads. We celebrated about 4 times. But because the bridge is still so far off when you see it, you can't really get a grasp of how long it's going to take to get to it. So we did. We celebrated about 4 times. We made it. We knew we'd made it by that point, but it's still a long way off.
Yeah.
The one thing that we were focused on, and we had a conversation with Tony Bain, Mad Kiwi, years ago.
Oh, from North Wales.
Yeah, from North Wales. Who just basically said, just get to the bridge and turn right. That's all you need to focus on. So when we saw that bridge, we got to it and we turned right. Job done.
Brilliant. And, it's a mammoth achievement. You would like to think that there'd be banners and, cowbells and horns and everything.
Yeah, hot tubs and bands and...
Who's there to greet you?
John.
No.
John, and there were a few other people. So John and his team, which there is 3 of them. And then there was a couple of the other teams still there, which was lovely. Really nice to see them. Glenn and Maureen were there, which was fantastic for us. That's the moment I burst into tears when Glenn came over and gave me a hug. I was just like, oh my God. So it's not like a big party, because what they do is once you get in there, if it's daylight, they have to ferry you out and get you to the nearest exit point, which is Fairbanks or wherever mainly Fairbanks. They can't wait around for that because there's one minibus. So
But you've not come back into a town, have you?
No. You're just at a trucker stop in the middle of Alaska, and it's hundreds of miles in either direction to anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have to get you out of there. So
Crazy.
there's no hanging about. You don't wait for a big party or a celebration.
Yeah.
You get given a t-shirt and a meal and a shower, and that's it.
And told to pop it.
Yeah, find your way out of here. Yeah.
Brilliant. So many questions. We could go on. We could go on for hours and hours and hours. Auntie said, "How long is this going to take?" I went, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Not 10 minutes,
We're
but
supposed
there's
to be
just
at
so
lunch.
much. I know. Sorry, lovely. Oh God, how did you feel coming home? You know, when it was over, we talked about this earlier. I said, you know, to all of these things, be it a 10K race or, you know, the Trent 100 or the Yukon 1000, you have this massive build-up, planning, everything. You have the pre-whatever before the race, the nerves, however it is, or the nothingness in your case. You do it, you know, 10K much easier than 1,000 miles, then it's over. It's over. And it almost seems to disappear into the ether. I think the 10K ones do.
Yeah.
But yours will not. How?
I think we'll start. No, I don't think
You haven't processed it. You haven't even started processing it.
No, I mean we got back to Whitehorse and we got to spend 3 days in Whitehorse, and I basically spent 3 days getting drunk. So just to kind of numb the senses and to be able to create some space and that sort of stuff. I didn't really get drunk for 3 days, but you know, I did have some fun, and we caught up with some people like John and his team when we were there, and one of the real local characters, Thomas, who runs Yukon Wide Adventures, the big German man who is a force to be reckoned with, and anyone that's met him will know exactly what I mean by that. So we got to spend some time with him, and then I had some fun and went and saw some bands and you know that kind of thing, and didn't really do much processing there. Or on the plane. Once you start getting out that side of it, the pain starts kicking in.
What was the most painful bit? You didn't wear shoes at all, did you?
No.
I find that unbelievable.
No.
But what was the worst? What was the worst pain?
On the river?
Yep.
I get this pain in the back of my neck here that was turned out to be a sign of extreme fatigue. That was the worst pain I had. The rest of the time I felt strong.
Good
pretty
man.
much. I wasn't. Both of us did. You know, it was weird, and you got stronger and stronger as it went on. So it wasn't until afterwards that a lot of the pain started kicking in.
Yeah.
The body's an amazing thing, I've learnt.
Absolutely. Swollen feet?
Definitely swollen feet, yeah. But that was afterwards as well, not during the race.
Oh, okay.
But as soon as I got off the water, within probably an hour or so, my feet were like balloons. I've got pictures, and it's just they were. And
I've
for days.
seen them. Great.
Yeah.
You don't want to be seeing those.
And for quite some time, they were like that for a week, 10 days.
Yeah.
I still have very little feeling in the bottom of my feet, and we're 2 weeks on. No, we're more than 2 weeks on. I can't remember. We might be in. I don't know. Whatever we are.
No idea.
No, we're not. No.
Oh, I think it's less than that, isn't it? Okay, tomorrow.
We finished on Friday or Saturday. We finished on Friday. 2 weeks tomorrow.
You finished early, my lovely.
Yeah. We fucking did.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. You finished in 8 days, 13 hours and 5 minutes.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
God.
Yeah, even Craig got that wrong on his first post. He put the man that's a detail man.
Do you know?
3
And that's
minutes.
where I've got that from.
Yeah, I know.
So I apologise.
Yeah.
3 minutes. That is an incredible achievement. One, because how many subgroups have done this race?
8.
8.
Yeah, 16 people.
16 people have done this race.
Ever, yeah.
Ever. How many British teams have done this race?
Us. We were the first. And then Martin and Kim were the second.
And you won it.
We won the subdivision, yes.
You won the subdivision.
Yes.
I mean, it just blows my mind.
Not as much as it blows mine.
No, I can imagine.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we are going to wrap up because we do need to go for lunch. But
Yeah.
Skip, you are, which is lovely, and you quite rightly should be incredibly proud of what you've done.
I'm proud of what I've done, and I'm proud of every person on that race this year, last year, that's ever bloody done
You
it.
now know.
Yeah, I now know
Yeah.
why. Certain people looked at me in a certain way, knowingly
Yeah.
before the race. I now know what all those looks meant,
Yeah.
and only
But
people
also
that
a
have done
different
it.
look afterwards as well, surely.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
Yeah,
the
definitely.
achievement
I've got the look now. I've got the look. I'm allowed to say I've got the look.
Yeah.
But only people that go there and do that will ever understand that.
It is you are in a huge minority. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Huge achievement.
In a very cool
tiny,
club.
Yeah, very cool club. Have you got the hat?
I haven't got a hat, no.
No, but you've got the.
I've got a T-shirt.
Yeah, you got the T-shirt.
I've got the T-shirt.
Okay, we want to
yeah.
see the T-shirt.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut it there.
Yeah.
Because I could talk to you for hours, you know, and I am really proud of you because I didn't have any doubts. You know, the people that love you, of course, won't have any doubts, but you don't know what's going to happen on the day or, you know, last year or whatever. But you are incredible, amazing. I love you. We all love you. And bloody well done.
Thanks.
Smashed it.